Now for everyone's favorite berserk herbivore, Triceratops. T-Rex's most famous rival, and would probably do pretty good on Skull Island too, not gonna lie. I mean, like, it already lived in the Hell Creek, which was a floodplain type ecosystem, as well as more arid areas, so Skull Island's jungles and lowlands should not be too difficult to accommodate to. It likely wouldn't be able to take advantage of grass because of how big their beaks are, but things like saplings, branches, shrubs, large fruit, maybe even bamboo is a food source that Triceratops could definitely process at least. I say this because with their huge jaws and immense bite forces, they could crack open bamboo in order to extract the more nutritious parts. Kong's entire species subsisted off of bamboo, so this is quite possible, and on top of that, their large size enables them to take down any small trees that they so wished. However, they would not be fully comfortable chewing on much wood, so they wouldn't be in direct competition with their cousin Feroctus, which prefers to feed on fallen trees. Some have suggested that ceratopsians may actually be omnivores, as their jaw structure could allow them to process a carcass. But I see no actual evidence of them doing this, so while they may take advantage of things like carrion and bones, it would not be their primary source of food. As for predators, while Skull Island has a number of them, adults would only be threatened by the Tyrannosaurs. V-Rex, while faster in a linear sprint, seems to have a harder time adjusting to pivoting opponents like Kong in terms of close quarters combat, and so the very agile Triceratops would be a decent challenge for it to hunt. T-Rex, as we know, did often attack this armored herbivore, but since a lot of those bite marks show healing, it does show that Trike was able to fend off a Rex most times. As for younger animals, predators like the Venatosaurus would most likely be the most common threat, and large reptiles like carvers could maybe try to steal one from a herd. But as we do know, according to recent finds, Triceratops traveled in groups of about 5, if not maybe even more, and these armored tanks would most certainly deal with any predator outside of the Tyrannosaurs with extreme prejudice. While not as armored as Ankylosaurus, chances are that the thick scales, huge frill, and impressive horns would fend off most attackers, and Triceratops would most likely do very well on Skull Island. Now for the armored tank Ankylosaurus, one of the most famous armored dinosaurs to ever exist. This large herbivore is famous for being able to defeat even T-Rex with a single club of its tail. This massive weapon could pulverize bone and generate forces of over 15 to 50,000 newtons. Such a force would instantly crush bone and render a predator helpless, if not just kill them outright. In terms of its diet, the low-slung herbivore would mostly be eating things like leaves, soft wood, possibly tubers, roots, leaves, fruit, maybe even insects. Skull Island's resident ankylosaur is a small insectivore, so one could argue that it would be competing with the Ankylosaurus, but given the giant size gap between the two, that seems unlikely. Ankylosaurus will probably find plenty to eat on the island, rotten fruit in the jungle, vines, roots, large insects like centipedes, and other nutritious snacks to shovel up. It would likely favor the lowlands, or possibly put closer to the coast, considering many think that Ankylosaurs actually liked more arid environments. But we know Ankylosaurus did live in Hell Creek, which was a floodplain slash swamp type environment, so it could probably do just fine even in the jungle. With that said, what about predators? Adult Tyrannosaurus and Vastatosaurus would probably be the only things that would try an adult Ankylosaurus. Venatosaurus would basically be pulverized if they even got too close to it. Knowing their cockiness in taking on sauropod herds, though, they may try it and would learn very quickly. Other armored herbivores do exist within Skull Island's jungles, but it's unlikely that these would pose much threat for Ankylosaurus because they would probably serve different niches. Also, the Ankylosaurus club is a more dangerous weapon than horns or bosses anyway. As younger animals, though, there is a chance that they would be snapped up by predators, but not too many more predators than they already dealt with. And with the abundance of easier game like hadrosaurs and ceratopsians, chances are Ankylosaurus will do just fine. Now for our next contender, Edmontosaurus annectans. Now, for a long time, it's just been generally portrayed are basically fodder, even against things as small and insignificant as a pack of raptors. For comparison, it's like saying a group of like 6 eagles is going to run down an elephant and kill it. Any person with actual common sense knows that this is pretty blatantly stupid. Now we have a reverse trope. That being of duckbills casually demolishing megatheropods, including Tyrannosaurus rex itself. This is most likely not the case, given the fact that T-Rex was just such a monstrously built animal, with such robust chest, massively powerful jaws, and seems near impossible to kill normally, that it's basically entirely unreasonable for even an Edmonto with a size advantage to kill a T-Rex. Now, couldn't it perhaps fight it off enough that it can escape with its life? That seems likely. The same could also apply to V-Rex in the Skull Island ecosystem because, well, chances are V-Rex will be better suited for hunting duckbills because of their faster speed and more maneuverable bodies. Though, their bite forces are less impressive seemingly due to smaller jaw muscles and are definitely less effective at actually committing a kill. But these more conical, grabby teeth may allow the duckbill to actually fight back better. Most hunts tend to fail after all, and there is a good bit of evidence that duckbills could at least escape from a T-Rex bite, although they tend to have the broken bones and holes in their skeleton to prove it, which would in turn mean that T-Rex could probably kill them with a good chomp, but through various means that they managed to escape. In terms of feeding, while it was commonly thought that duckbills fed on water plants in the ancient times, now they're more known to be grazers of plants like ferns, horsetails, trees, etc. But, being some of the few dinosaurs that could actually chew, they could probably process a lot more types of vegetation. Things like fruit, which is abundant on Skull Island, and fungi might be ready treats. With these high-calorie, very abundant sources of food, Edmontosaurus is most likely going to have plenty to eat. On top of this, we know that they also fed on wood, which may have contained crustaceans, meaning that some of Skull Island's large insects like centipedes, spiders, and beetles may also be occasional treats. Some animals like cattle even chew on bones to get extra calcium, so hadrosaurs might have done this too. Despite the common portrayal of herbivores eating meat, it seems to be something due to more strenuous circumstances in the ecosystem. Skull Island provides plenty of grass, leaves, trees, twigs, fruits, etc. And with their robust jaws and great chewing, they may even be able to take advantage of plants like bamboo. With large herds, they could fend off most of the smaller predators, with Venatosaurus being a pain in their side at night, and the large Tyrannosaurs for the most part in the day. Though Tyrannosaurs may have been nocturnal as well, we don't have as much direct evidence for it in them. When facing these attackers, the Edmontos of most sizes will probably choose to flee rather than to fight. This is because, despite having nearly 600 named specimens of Edmontosaurus, only 2 exceed known T-Rex sizes at over 11 metric tons. 6-ton individuals are a lot more common, but not super common. But due to the fact that they breed incredibly quickly, this means that there are actually a number of small adults, with some as small as 3 tons being known. Meaning that the average for Edmontosaurus is actually much lower than the large individuals that are commonly portrayed now. That said, with such an abundance of food, space, and probably being able to outcompete its new neighbor Ligocristus, Edmontosaurus will definitely thrive on Skull Island, with only the abundance of predators being an issue, though adults will mainly still have to worry about the ones that they actually dealt with, that being T-Rex and now V-Rex. The famous Pachycephalosaurus. Probably one of the few smaller dinosaurs I can incorporate into the Skull Island ecosystem that doesn't just get eaten by everything. With a thick dome head built for ramming and fighting, this medium-sized animal has a pretty good chance, I would say. The gar is able to fend off predators like even pairs of Venatosaurus, and it's only marginally larger, while not having as good of defenses, in my opinion, and of course being significantly less agile. The adult tyrannosaurs are much more likely to go after large game, like the hadrosaurs and ceratopsians. This leaves the smaller predators to be the main hunters here. Venatosaurus, for example, I see being their main predator. It's larger, likely swifter, definitely smarter, especially since it is a pack animal. With their relatively fragile build, I could see a Pachycephalosaurus headbutt doing quite a bit of damage. And unlike monsters like King Kong and V-Rex, these are not super hard to overpower. In fact, they're pretty definitely shown on screen being knocked over by human tackles and being kicked in the head hard enough that they hit the ground. The dome of a Pachycephalosaurus would be a crippling blow, if not outright fatal. But with group work, they're able to take down surprisingly large prey, such as Avrosaurus, an omnivorous Spinosaur, and Asperdosis if they really push their luck, this being a nearly 12-meter long spiked sauropod. So if the Venatosaurus really feel like it, chances are they could kill a Pachy. But in a one-on-one encounter, I see the Pachy being able to defend itself just fine. But what would it eat? We actually don't really know what it eats. Its teeth are small, sharp, and serrated, which is known to not really be good at dealing with tough vegetation. It's currently thought that they fed on leaves, fruit, seeds, and probably small animals. Luckily, those are abundant in Skull Island. The jungles, lowlands, if they feel adventurous, maybe even the coast or even in the uplands. In the jungle though, large predators are still abundant, with 10-meter long reptiles nicknamed carvers being the absolute apex, and they are willing to take smaller game. The pack-hunting therapsids may give it a try, giant spiders could catch it in their webs, and if one is unfortunate enough to fall into the bug pit, that would be a very unfortunate event. But in turn, things like small lizards, insects, flizzards, possibly small birds, mammals, the large centipedes, these may be gobbled up in mass. After all, if parrots on Skull Island adapted to eating meat, I don't see why a Pachycephalosaurus might not stick to a more protein-based diet, especially in the jungles. And to give Skull Island its final contender, the only other animal I could think of from the Hell Creek sort of ecosystem that is Ornithomimus/Struthiomimus, the giant Gallimimus-like animals. In terms of defense, they'd probably have a pretty good kick given their size, and speed for the most part. Being able to run at up to 30 miles an hour, this is a good bit faster than a number of Skull Island predators. The Venatosaurus are barely able to outpace running humans, but they can make up for this lack of speed with ambushes and teamwork. Vastatosaurus is likely too big to normally consider hunting them, but as we know, inbred V-Rex are completely effing stupid and love to do things that don't make any damn sense, though their normal population stick to the big game. Young Tyrannosaurs, though, would be their most dangerous opponents. Young V-Rex and T-Rex both are slim pursuit chase predators. Still able to puncture bone, though, so could definitely get a kill. Group hunting therapsids, giant spiders, Pteranodon in the swamps, Venatosaurus, and many other jungle predators may be a threat, though these guys may stick to the open fields, where predators would be much easier to spot. As for its own diet, it's generally assumed that they are omnivores, so the bounty of insects, fish, frogs, birds, lizards, eggs, fruit, grass, seeds, leaves, and more food options will all be theirs for the taking. With good senses and good speed, it may be able to survive well. It's pretty low on the food chain. While the Hell Creek has a lot of other animals I could talk about, most of them are pretty similar to the ones I've currently discussed. Because of that, I would have to broaden my search for contestants, but I wanted to keep this video specifically focused on, well, to be honest, mostly T-Rex versus V-Rex, personally, after learning just how absurdly broken the real T-Rex actually is. But maybe in turn, we can bring more dinosaurs into more fictional locations. Places like Fallout, Monster Hunter, other versions of Skull Island, maybe even the Hollow Earth, and other fictitious ecosystems. And maybe we can do fiction versus fiction in that regard too. Anyway, thank you all for watching. The scores will be provided after this ends.